Is your lack of sexual discipline holding you back from being the man you know you could be? If we've never met before, mate, my name is Oliver, and on this channel I help men win the war inside their heads. And in today's video, I'm talking about why sexual discipline could be your superpower and why mastering it could completely change your life, and what's going to talk about how you exactly do that. So firstly, man, what is sexual discipline? Let me tell you a bit of a story. So I've been practicing celibacy for just a little while now, a month or two. Actually, I've not really been counting. This also means no pornography. Like, I've not been watching porn for quite a while, but I've also not been pursuing women for the past couple of months either. And a couple of weeks ago, I'm on vacation with family in the south of Portugal. I'm on the beach. It's a lovely day, and there are beautiful women everywhere. Beautiful women wearing basically nothing. Now, as I'm sat there, I know that usually in the past I would have sort of felt the arousal or the energy, and if I would have done something like this in the past version of myself, I would have just sort of distracted myself. I would have written in my journal. I wouldn't have even been looking. I would have been kind of rejecting the whole experience. But this time was different. I decided to sit there. I decided to look around, not like in a pervy way, but I decided to look around and just enjoy it. And just feel the surge of energy moving up and down my spinal column, and just sit there and breathe through it and not reject the experience, but embrace it. And something else happened after that was quite interesting, quite surprising to me. The arousal and the energy dissipated. And what it was replaced by was this surge of creativity. I felt like instead of be here on this beach, I wanted to write an amazing script for my YouTube channel. I wanted to create an amazing DJ set and perform it somewhere. I found myself wanting to draw a picture for the first time in ages, and I wanted to hit the gym. I wanted to do all sorts of positive things for my well-being. But what actually happened here? What actually happened here, as I now realise, is a practice. Essentially, I'd accidentally practiced something called sexual transmutation. Sexual transmutation is a practice that's been popularised by Napoleon Hill, famous author Napoleon Hill, very successful guy, in his book Think and Grow Rich. And Hill, in that book, talks about how important sexual discipline and sexual transmutation was in his success. So without really knowing it, I'd actually transmuted my sexual energy by focusing on it, not resisting it, allowing it to pass through me, embracing it, if you will. This is the potential that sexual discipline can have. Sexual discipline is, it's aside from the survival instinct, sexual energy, the sex drive, is the most powerful drive that we have. And if we don't learn to harness this as men, then it can not only will we waste that energy, that vital potential, but it might also be channeled into self-destructive ways too. But what does actually happen when a man lacks sexual discipline altogether? If he has absolutely no sexual discipline and his desires and temptations and sexual urges just pull him in every kind of direction in life, to really illustrate the point of how this can go off the rails, let me tell you about a former client of mine. I'm obviously changing his name, but my former client is a guy called Chris. Now, this guy, very successful. When he came to me, and as far as I know still is, running multiple companies, very successful guy in terms of entrepreneurship, but came to me because he had a problem that he couldn't quite figure out. That problem is that while on the surface he tells himself that he, at the time, wants a relationship and to settle down with kids one day. This is what he sees in the future. The guy's in his late 30s. But he also, at the same time, pays for sex. He hires OnlyFans models. He goes to happy ending massage parlors constantly. He's constantly chatting with women online that he never sees a future with just for the dopamine hit. He has these cheap Tinder hookups that are going absolutely nowhere with younger women. The way he was currently showing up in his life at that point was not driving him towards a fulfilling relationship with kids. It was driving him to just sort of these teenager-based sexual encounters that was gonna keep him stuck forever. So in our sessions, I decided to, with Chris, dive into this. And one session in particular, we started to really get into the depths of what was creating all this creating this behavior that he wasn't explaining. And I asked him, I said, Chris, close your eyes, take some deep breaths. We did a visualization exercise. I asked him to tell me what comes up, what images come to mind when he thinks of a long-term relationship. And he tells me, after a while, I just picture my future children crying. I'm like, right, okay, what else? And he says, I picture my wife throwing things at me and getting angry at me and being upset and crying and running out of the room. I'm like, okay, tell me more about that. He opens his eyes and he says, that's the truth. He goes, I know on some level that even if, like, no matter how amazing she is, I will find some way to screw it up eventually. And man, this is what happened with him. He knew that his lack of sexual discipline would lead him into a shitty situation, would create pain for himself and those around him. His lack of self-discipline, sexual discipline, completely undermined his self-trust to the point where he didn't actually believe he deserved or could go for the things he really wanted in life. And I would say that a lack of sexual discipline has this effect on any of us. If none of us, if you just haven't got the control, the self-control, and you know it, it's going to ruin your confidence, ruin your self-trust, and eventually ruin your self-respect. Even the ancient Greeks, because I like to reference Stoicism and ancient Greek mythology and philosophy, the ancient Greeks knew this. The ancient Greeks completely understood that untapped, unchallenged lust can be one of the most destructive things, not just for a man in his own life, but for society as a whole. And for example, take the myth of Medusa. Medusa was a very, very beautiful maiden and priestess in the temple of Athena. And then one day, the god of the sea, I believe, Poseidon, decides to rape her in the temple of Athena. And then for some bizarre reason, Athena turns around not to Poseidon, but to Medusa and blames her for it and says, "You've desecrated my temple, how dare you? I'm going to turn you into a monster with snakes for hair." And that's exactly what Athena does. Medusa's transformed from a beautiful priestess into a monster with a snake tail and snakes for hair, who turns men to stone simply by looking at them. And in that temple is where she resides. That is until the hero Perseus arrives with a shield made with the surface of a mirror and reflects her gaze back to her, thus turning her into stone. So what the hell does this story mean? Well, first of all, we've got the obvious metaphor where Poseidon's unchecked lust, even though he's a god for fuck's sake, causes tremendous pain, suffering, and catastrophe, both to Athena's temple, and to Medusa as well. But we also have the second metaphor, which is the paralyzing effect that a woman's gaze can have on a man that is not able to reflect it. A man who absorbs a woman's sexual energy, absorbs a woman's sexual gaze, and has not got the capacity to stand firm in the midst of it, will be turned to stone. His personal growth will be disrupted, interrupted. He'll ultimately be paralyzed by it. It's as Rocky Balboa in the movie Rocky 1, Rocky's trainer says, "Women weaken legs." And what he basically means by that is, how can you possibly be a man of mission, purpose, depth, driven by values, self-respecting, upstanding? How can you be a leader if you cannot even lead yourself? If you cannot even lead yourself out of your lust? If your lust has you by the balls, how can you possibly be a man that you respect? So how do you build sexual discipline? Okay, so there are a few ways of doing it, but the main way, the most impactful way, is what I want to tell you right now. And that is to go through a period of intentional celibacy. Now, some of you might be saying at this point, "Oliver, I've been through dry spells before. It was horrible, it was brutal, it did nothing for me." But there's something very different, mate, between having an unintentional dry spell where you're actually deep down craving female attention and not really doing anything with the time and still chasing. There's a difference between that and saying, look, for a set amount of time, I'm going to not pursue women whatsoever and pursue other things, other goals in life. So with that in mind, I would suggest that you pick a time frame, 3 months, 6 months, or longer if you wish, where you're going to be celibate. I want you to write up the terms and conditions of your behaviour on a contract. Get it in writing, get it on paper. Create a consequence for failure. For example, you're going to pay $2,000 to a charity you hate. And finally, get a friend or an accountability partner to sign the contract with you and keep a copy of it. Between this date and this date, I will not sleep with a woman, I will not kiss a woman, etc., whatever the terms and conditions are. And finally, use this time effectively. Use it well. All right? Use it to clarify who you are. Use it to clarify what you want. Use it to build a skill. To answer the question, why are you here? Because if you just spend this time playing video games and ignoring the truths of your life or the deeper questions, then this time you might as well not even do the celibacy period, really. Most of your drives, your desires, and the things that knock you off course exist in the part of your mind called the shadow. This is the part of your mind that you're not aware of. And one of the most powerful ways of changing your behavior and adopting a new identity and ultimately changing your life in the long term is to engage in shadow work. But how do you do that? Click the link in the pinned comment down below where I've put together a free 31-day shadow work journal, putting pen to paper with a single high-impact writing prompt every single day to finally understand who you really are deep down and what you can do about it in your life. So click the link down below, download that, and I'll see you in the next video, mate. Peace.